how does pricing work? This is how does pricing work in a data-driven hellhole of, like modern click consumerism. So you guys go into, and so many wonderful writers have contributed to this edition, go into things like dynamic pricing, personalized pricing, algorithmic pricing, surge pricing, which I think we've all heard of, shrinkflation, junk fees. There's so many things. And I think some of the things that actually scared me the most, all this stuff, by the way, this is not ideas. Most of these things are already underway in multiple industries and things that you and I purchase every single day. So tell me about them, specifically things like this dynamic pricing and personalized pricing. Oh, God.
Yeah. So, obviously inflation has been a major topic of conversation for the last couple of years. We see various strands of things coming together to influence pricing in a major way, in a way that is not connected as much to supply and demand. So one of them is corporations got bigger. They control more of a market by themselves, and this is a long trend over the last 40 years. The more recent trend is that corporations have gotten smarter. So they know more about you. They know more about your purchases. They know more about your history of what you like to buy, when you like to buy it, when you have money to buy it.
3 a.m, anything, right. Why baby crying? Stop baby cry.
Exactly. And then the third thing is the way in which inflation that was caused by supply changes and things like that during the pandemic gave the excuse to put these things into practice. Okay, we're bigger. We don't have to worry about losing market share if we raise prices, and we're smarter. So we know exactly when you're going to buy our product. So we can do some schemes around this. We can do some experiments on our customers to look at when we can maximize our profits and actually maximize your willingness to pay, which is not your ability to pay. It's not how much money you have. It's your willingness to pay.
Yeah.
Basically exploiting various situations and an information advantage to make sure that you're going to buy our product.
Yeah, and I love the article about personalized pricing and the idea that 2 different people will get 2 different prices, and often it'll be the person who has less money to spend who will get a higher price on the same product.
Yeah. So like one example is we looked at some pricing from staples.com. And if your IP address was in a different zip code, you would be charged more for the same product, a tape dispenser, a stapler, or whatever. And the reason that you would be charged more, and what it showed in poorer areas, is that you don't actually have the option to walk outside your door and find a hardware store or a store that sold these office supplies. So you have to go online. You're constrained by that, and therefore you're going to pay whatever we offer you to pay.
Right.
Some of the other things that were really crazy, like, do you guys have the McDonald's app on your phone?
Maybe no.
Well, about 50 million people worldwide do. And McDonald's is really pushing people toward their app. And they're offering discounts now. But what they want to do is they want to get you on the phone. They want to get you on, get onto your phone so they know everything about your purchase history and even about other things. We got a slide presentation. It's in that personalized pricing piece, which I call surveillance pricing, by the way. And
the personalized makes it seem cool.
That sounds fluffy. Yeah. Hey, one price just for you. So we got this slide presentation by the company that makes the McDonald's app. And they're talking about the different factors that go into how much they charge for a particular product. And one of them was your payday. So if they know when you get paid every week or every other week, they know when you're flush. So maybe on Thursday they'd offer you an egg McMuffin for $2.95, but on Friday after you got paid, maybe it's $3.95. And maybe that doesn't sound like much, but they do hundreds of millions of interactions every day with their customers, and it adds up. Basically, we have created this kind of dystopian situation where everything about you is inputted and put into an algorithm to maximize how much that can be extracted from you.
And I wanted to ask about that because you know, when I started writing for the American Prospect, it actually was like the pandemic was still kind of ongoing, and we're still the economy, the labor market, you know, union fights are all still reeling from the pandemic. And you've done an incredible job about writing about it. So I wanted to know, when you say that they got bigger and more powerful corporations, you've written about the fact that they have, like, their profits have only increased, but did their consolidation increase too because so many businesses went under? Is that part of it?
It's part of it, but I mean, this is a long trend going back to the 1980s in terms of increased concentration. What did happen during the pandemic is e-commerce became a much bigger part of our lives. And this was important for these schemes, right? Because if you're outside in public in a line and you're charged $3 for something and the guy in front of you is only charged $2, you're going to be pissed off, right? You're going to be mad that there's differential pricing between you and the person in front of you in line. If you're online, you're not seeing anybody. You don't have anything to compare it to. If you're on your phone, it's even more isolated. Basically, the job is to isolate the consumer. There are now smart TVs where you can get offers and buy things directly off your television. That's even more secluded, even more isolated. And so we're getting to this position where there isn't one price. There isn't really one price that something is worth. Like that television is worth $100. Like, we don't have that. We have it for the moment, but we're moving away from that. And there's a very concerted effort to move away from that so that if you're isolated, you won't know if you're getting a raw deal.
Yeah. I wanted, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say, like, it made me think of a recent story about Walmart. I think it was Walmart updating all their tags to be electronic so that, like, on a minute by minute basis, they could change the pricing. And I feel like in almost all these cases with the McDonald's and with the online staples and everything, in theory, you could defend yourself with technology. So you can, like, there are price trackers over time, and you could potentially use some sort of VPN so they don't necessarily know exactly where you're coming from, or you could not use the app when you go to McDonald's. But, like, then it becomes all on you, and it all has to be reactive. Meanwhile, the corporations, it's ever present and all encompassing and automatic.
What you're saying is like kind of what people say in their head when they go to Vegas. Like, I can figure it out. I think I've got the pattern here, and I can win the roulette. So that, we don't want to have that mentality when we're just trying to buy a candy bar, right? I mean, there was a comment that was in that Lena Khan, who I interviewed for this story, chair of the FTC, told me about a comment she got from a veteran who said, I've served our country, I've went to war, and it feels like when I go to buy something, I have to put on battle gear so I don't get ripped off. That's we don't want to have that feeling. We need to know that someone out there is actually helping us and protecting us from what is, a high-tech form of price gouging.
Yes. And I do want to talk about what is being done to stop all that. But I also just... Maybe, let's talk about what's being done to stop all that. Like, what's the FTC doing? What about these junk fees, which I was, curious to know that a Biden official was the one who coined this term. So now we talk about it.
Yeah, Rohit Chopra, the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, coined the term junk fees. Those are these fees that are layered on. Like if you want to go to a concert, you go on Ticketmaster, and it starts out, it's a $50 ticket, and by the time you're done, it's an $80 ticket, and it just sort of dripped you along and added a little fee here and there.
which was just like, John, like, when you're like, oh, only $20 to get this thing delivered. And then by the time you pass by the dripping of the full price, it's like, now it's 40.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, as an example right there, the Department of Justice sued Ticketmaster in May over monopolizing the market. So one of these things you can do is try to break up these companies and create some competition, which could bring down prices. Another thing that is being done is proposed bans on things like junk fees, saying you have to give us the all-in price first, and that way we can compare that between what other companies are offering, and then, make a determination. As far as the CFPB, credit card late fees, which go up to as much as $40 for a late fee. The CFPB has put out a rule that says, no, these can only be equal to the cost of what it costs a credit card company to collect. And so that's $8 they determined. So they cut, instead of like an all-in, which is just sort of disclosure, like we know how much you're screwing us, they said, no, we're actually cutting the price. So that's been done. And there are a number of other things that are going on. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Department of Justice have a strike force on illegal and unfair pricing, where they're looking across the economy at these kinds of things.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think there's a lot that's been done. I think there can be a lot more done. Some of this is having somewhat of an impact. You're starting to see discounts. You're starting to see particularly grocery stores, which we had a whole piece on grocery pricing in here.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So they're starting to retrench a little bit.
That were visible, like all the shit that's like, John, like when it's like on the edge of the aisle, or like a little bit too prominent. That's the thing that's going to be the most expensive for you. You got to go,
and they pay for that. They pay. The companies pay for their shelf space in a grocery store.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really amazing, and this wasn't even in the piece, but they have these things called category captains, where the grocery store will subcontract the determination of who gets what space to one of the food companies. So like they'll say, hey, Unilever, you figure out what that space is on the shelf. Yeah. And so what's Unilever going to do? They're going to put their competitors at the bottom of the shelf or way up top. So there's this whole war that goes on in the aisles of a grocery store that none of us really pay attention to or know about, but it has the effect. If you're paying all that money basically for advertising to put your thing at eye level, that's going to come out in the price, right? Because you're paying to get in, so you're going to have to extract that back out of the consumer.
Yeah, I think that specifically, I think last week Tonight had some sort of breakdown about that, how the real estate is divvied out.
I mean, John, but arguably Biden's best moment was the State of the Union, and he talked about junk fees very slurrily. I mean, it wasn't.
Are you saying he's not a great communicator? Is that what you're trying to get together?
Yeah. Don't be ableist, okay? That just
don't be racist by trying to get Joe Biden out of the race.
Exactly.
That I've heard a lot too.
Thing.
Yeah,
it's racist. Wait, but there was a moment where he was like, "Oh, the shrinkflation. You buy a bag of chips and there's fewer chips," and you're like, "Oh, it was."
But it's a true thing. It's they will take down the cost, or they will keep the cost the same and take down the amount that goes in to a package. And in France, what they do is, if that happens, they actually force the grocery to slap a warning label on the product that says, this is an example of shrinkflation. This is cost the same, but has less amount in it. And we could do that here.
Shame. It's a shame label, John.
It's a shame label.
Yeah. I mean, we've always been really bad at forcing them to do even super obvious stuff. Like, how long did it take to get added sugars to be individually listed? Right. Like, we defer so much to the food companies and how they advertise and bag things. I don't think that Biden's delivery of that at the State of the Union was one of the highlights, but I generally like that he focused on that stuff. I know that he's kind of doing it because it's easier than doing larger scale systemic changes, but I know he's not going to do those things. So we might as well deal with some of the fees.
I mean, look, there is this feeling that the economy has improved, but we all kind of have this feeling that it's not good.
Yes.
That things are not working the way that they should. And I think a major reason for that is that there is this sense that companies are trying to get one over on you no matter what you do. And speaking to this general sense that companies are trying to extract, they're trying to gouge you, they're trying to trick you. All of these things, I think, are broadly, they speak to what people are feeling in their actual lives. And that's what you need to connect with in order to sort of explain the position that you have, your record, and what you see for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sexy, and you have to sort of like package it into something. I don't know. It could be like, fill out this cool form, or I'm like trying to think of
like we did another example on one of the pieces was about subscription pricing, right?
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing where it's sometimes you talk about the internet as the attention economy. I think of subscriptions as the inattention economy. The whole point is to get you into a subscription so you forget about it. Yep. And so it's a micropayment and you don't remember you have it. There's a study that was done that asked people, how much do you pay per month in subscriptions? And the average that people said was something like $80. And then when they tallied up their actual subscriptions, it was more like $200. This is a strategy to get you into these things and then to keep you there. So make it very hard to cancel.
I was reading this edition, like I was reading it in bed at night before sleeping, and I'd immediately be like, oh my God. And I would look at my purchases and just be like, what do I need to cancel? What do I need to cancel? Oh, Peacock. Right. Fuck. I still subscribe to Peacock and I canceled it. Like I've just,
there are now subscription services to help you with your subscriptions.
Yes,
there are literal websites that you pay every month to help you stop paying every month.
Before we let you go, can you just talk about, it feels like, okay, there's a little bit that's being done from the government to help us on this. Maybe not, I think, as John rightly points out, sort of an overarching vision, which I'd say this administration lacks broadly. But then there is something which is, interest rates and bringing those down, because it feels as though the interest rates still being high, mortgage rates being high, credit card rates being high, auto loan rates are high, that everyone is, you can't, you're getting squeezed also because you cannot borrow and you're being punished when you do. And it's just like, so that it's just like, there's no, I'm just like, even if you have to keep the interest rates high, at least be able to talk about greedflation a little bit. Tell us why people are getting gouged.
I would call interest rates a form of kind of double greedflation. So companies raise prices and you have to pay more. You don't have enough money to pay, so you put it on credit, and then the price of credit also is going up, right? And because of interest rates in large measure. I think the data that we've seen, we're starting to see unemployment tick up. We're starting to see wages fall. All of those things point to the fact that interest rates are actually probably too high right now, especially because of what you're saying, because the cost of living is also the cost of credit. And it's not only disrupting, the ability of people to buy a car, buy a house, it's also disrupting the ability to build that stuff, because companies have to pay that interest rate too. And home builders, for example, if they have high interest costs, they're not going to build as many homes. And that means less supply in the market, less, rental units for sale, for rent, and inevitably higher prices. So it's a vicious cycle. And the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, he's on Capitol Hill this week. He was speaking today. And Democrats were pressing him, why are interest rates still at this level? You have a dual mandate. The Federal Reserve is supposed to try to keep inflation low and maximize employment. The employment situation is starting to get a little bit out of control. Inflation is already pretty much in a good place right now. It's come down, but we have this nagging thing with the cost of credit. Why are you keeping interest rates high? And so I think he's getting some pressure, and it's needed pressure, because we should see these interest rates come down.
John, any final thoughts on ye old economy?
I want it to be a bigger focus of the election than it currently is. I don't know if the right strategy is to focus on the little nickel and diming that people, I think, very viscerally like interpret as being screwed over by corporations. I think that definitely doing ads that focus on the fact that some of these end up getting overturned by Republican appointed judges. Some of the ones that are put forward to like for the Senate, the Republicans in the Senate oppose. Like, if you can get a narrative going of you being the ones that are on the side of regular people and the other ones being on the side of you being nickel and dimed by corporations, I think that could be powerful. But it veers into theoretically wonky territory. And again, Biden isn't a great messenger for it. So I
mean, we all pay stuff every day. We all pay for things every day. I mean, you have this feeling every time you go to the grocery store. You have a feeling every time you look at the gas pump. There are ways to message this. I don't think there's any doubt. And I think you've hit on something, John, that's very, very important, which is the fact that these Republican judges keep trying to block these policies, including that credit card interest rate late fee situation that I talked about, is a way to differentiate between the parties here.
Yeah, I think you have to say
it's a good one.
Biden's trying to put money back in your pocket. That's I mean, that's what I've said. And again, I've been in this awful situation where I have to defend Joe Biden, or sing some of the.
You are our only hope, Francesca.
Yeah,
you are our only hope.
It
really is. And if they lose, it really is your fault.
It's on me, truly. It's on this show. Everyone like, share, and subscribe.
Or else.
Or else.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.